All right, folks, thank you for joining us. This is John Henning here at the Franchise Radio Show, and today we're joined by Tom Monaghan, Senior VP Franchise Recruiting at CertaPro. Tom, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate your time.
I'll certainly appreciate the invitation. It's an honor to be here.
All right, good deal. Now, before we get into the business information, just like we just talked about, I always like to get to know the person a little bit because, as I say, and the folks that listen to other interviews on this channel know, I'm a firm believer that people do business with people. So tell us about Tom Monaghan a little bit. Where are you from? Where do you live? Who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Fantastic, John. Let me start with Tom Monaghan, right? The name is pretty popular in franchising. Early in my career, I was often mistook for Tom Monaghan, as I call it, the other Tom Monaghan of franchise, the founder of Domino's Pizza. That's not me. So if any of your listeners now are clicking off because, oh my God, I thought I was hearing that Tom Monaghan.
Wrong guy. Yep.
Wrong guy. I am the current and Tom Monaghan of franchising, and literally have been doing franchising, John, my entire life. And I just don't mean since I've been adult. Since the day I was born into a family that owned and operated franchise concepts. My family owned service stations and convenience stores and truck rental facilities. My very first word was car because I was literally grew up in a playpen in the back of a gas station and have been in the franchising business the entire 56 years of my life.
Look at you mean like literally in the franchise business, like physically?
Literally.
Right.
So, I'm a born and raised Philadelphia guy. Our family business here was in Philadelphia. I actually, worked for the family business on nights and weekends and summers since I was 8 years old. And even when I was a kid, I was babysat by sitting and having to go to work with my parents to the stations, and got a huge opportunity to see what franchising and small business ownership could do for a family in terms of income, in terms of lifestyle, and ultimately in terms of equity. Our family exited that business in the early or late 1980s. We sold it. And at that point, I went to work for the franchisors at that point. So I've been literally doing this now. God, I used to be the kid in the room, and now I'm the old guy in the room. But I've been doing now on the franchisor side for over 32 years as a franchise executive. So have literally spent my entire life in franchising and find the franchise model just an unbelievable honor to be a part of, not only and primarily because of the opportunities it brings families to get their piece of the American dream, and ultimately that cliche of being in business for themselves but not by themselves.
Tom, I'm going to go off script here just a little bit because we are so like-minded on franchising. It is scary, okay? Because I look at, how you've always heard, and I'm sure you've heard it too, one of the biggest, things that we'll do in our life is buy a house, right? And that's true. That is, if not the biggest for most normal, average consumers out there. But I believe that owning a franchise business or, several franchise businesses is actually even more impactful because it's life-changing. Like it's life-altering when you own your own franchise business. We sit around the table at Thanksgiving. My family owns franchises. I've owned them. I've sold them. I've built them. So I've been inside the franchise industry for 20 years myself, and every third word at the Thanksgiving table is the word franchise. Okay? It's crazy. So.
It really is. I mean, it's just an amazing opportunity for the right concept and the right person. And I've loved it because it's still to this day, there were employees of our family service station businesses that I still keep in touch with 30 years later and count them as kind of part of the family. And I get to see that now through even our franchise owners in our concept, what they do to rise up and be part of their community, to give back, to create opportunities for families that work for them they might not have had working for others. It's just an amazing model, and I understand.
It's powerful. Yeah, it sure is. Well, good. Let's talk about your journey into CertaPro. Tell us how you became involved in the company and a little bit about what you do at the company.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's been it's funny. My connection to CertaPro dates way back, literally to my college days. And when I say that was a few of my best friends in college during the summers participated in a company called CertaPro Painters. Many of you may have heard that. They brought on college kids and did seasonal paint work. Well, CertaPro stemmed out of College Pro. It was literally some of the franchise owners of College Pro that decided that they could find a way to make College Pro be a year-round business for their folks. And at the time, that was Charlie Chase and a gentleman named Rich Wilson, with whom I went to college with. They kind of co-founded and started the CertaPro painting out of College Pro. I've been connected with them literally since college days. So very familiar with the brand. We went different paths. I worked for, a few other franchise companies. At one point, actually, Charlie Chase and Rich Wilson, a few others from CertaPro, came to work with me at Mako Collision Repair and Auto Painting Franchise Company at that time. Vice President of Operations there. They came over, had worked with us for a few years, and then went back to CertaPro. And like most good things in franchising, at the franchisor level, we're executives that may be competitors in some instances that you may look at, but are really not. We are there to help rise up the entire franchise industry. And as a result of that, I've kept in touch with these guys and have shared best practices and, worked together on a lot of different things. And at the end of the day, about 2 years ago, when the opportunity was brought to me to come and help CertaPro reinvigorate their franchise recruiting for both helping our existing owners exit the business, getting as much equity out of their business as possible, as well as working to attract new franchisees to come into the system, it was a match made in heaven for me. I knew the brand. I knew the concept. Quite honestly, if you're in franchising, especially in the Philadelphia area here, you tend to trade players, as we call it.
Yep.
So, the people don't change, just the jerseys change.
It's funny you say that, because I know for sure, absolutely, without doubt, you and I have worked with the same people. So I know John and Jeff, and I know all those guys because I worked at Amco and Mako for a period of time. So I know exactly who you're talking about with the jerseys and the companies, because as you probably know, I live just outside of Philadelphia myself. So.
I know you do, John. We've known each other way back when, all the way your Amco days, and other when you're working in the portal organizations and stuff. So again, I think what we've found, much like franchise owners that own it, even the corporate employees, once you get a taste of franchising, assuming you're with the right concept, you fall in love with it and you don't leave it. And that's exactly what has transpired with me here, with over 32 years of franchise corporate experience. And I still feel like every day I'm excited to get up and go to work every day and love what I do.
That's what I tell everybody, man. It's cliche. I apologize, but find something you love to do and you're not working every day, right? I know I'm totally stealing that from somebody famous that's way smarter than me, but I'm going to claim it for today because it's true, right? I do the same thing. Like the franchise radio show for me is a passion project, right? It's like, I love this so much. This is one of the reasons that I do it. My wife was like, why do you record those podcasts? Like, what are you doing? And, I try to explain it to her and she's like, oh, it has to do with franchising. I get it. Let's talk about the history of the company a little bit. You mentioned, I just want to clarify, you mentioned the college thing and transition through. Walk us through, the company's, say, past 10-year history, a little bit about the growth, what's happening, what's the company doing for growth, that kind of thing.
Well, let me start all the way back, right? So the company actually, as I said, spurned out of College Pro Painters back in 1992. This year, and I only think we're super excited. This year represents our 30th anniversary. And couldn't be more proud of it becoming what it's become. It continues to see just amazing growth. We've got 380 plus franchise owners across North America. We're both in 46 states now and throughout Canada. They service about 510 territories across North America there. And I am so proud of our franchise owners because I remember way back when my colleagues were leaving Mako to go back to CertaPro, and this is in probably 2004. And I was, at that time, we were about a $450 million company at Mako. And I'm going to those guys, why are you going back to that little painting company? They're never going to be anything. And here I am today, put my foot in my mouth, and I'm with the company, seeing the unbelievable trajectory of the brand growth. Last year, the brand did over $653 million in system-wide sales. It's 5 times larger than the closest home service competitor out there. Our franchisees are averaging over $1.7 million a year in sales. And it's just so awesome to see what we've done to take a very fragmented industry of painting, right, that is historically looked at as kind of a man in a van, they called it, kind of a concept. Yep. And CertaPro has made it a professional, scalable business for folks. And, our franchise owners are never picking up a paintbrush. They're not up on ladders. They're running a big, scalable business that's in multiple of millions of dollars in their community. And I couldn't be more proud of, that kind of growth. Last year, we saw a 28% year-over-year system-wide growth. And our franchisees are out there just kicking butt by, providing both residential and commercial painting services in their communities.
Tom, you hit on something that obviously in franchising and in all businesses, right, unless you live under a rock, the big P, right? How's the pandemic affected the painting industry over the past year or two? I mean, you kind of answered it already, but I want to give you the opportunity to talk about, how has it impacted it? Are there any, everybody hears in the news, that's what we want to talk about, logistical issues with supply chains and all the cliches, but in reality, I'm sure the pandemic did affect your business. How did it affect CertaPro Painters?
Yeah, early on in the pandemic, right, when the proverbial pandemic really hit the fan, right, in March of 2020, there was clearly some, like most people, some very frightened individuals. And for about 6 to 8 weeks there, we, like any business, we were concerned. Folks didn't want us coming into their homes to do this business, but we reacted really quickly. And it ended up being, we even grew in 2020 over 2019. We had created our Certa Safety program to ensure that all of our painters and all of our salespeople were wearing masks, were wearing gloves at the time, we're washing hands, we're really making sure that the interactions with the customers were minimized in terms of social distancing. We created an online estimating program, so we wouldn't even have to go to the home to provide estimates to our customers. That's something now, by the way, that we raced to the market to get that completed, and now represents a huge upside for us. Many of our customers are taking advantage of that. And as I said, we saw a growth, even though we were probably down for about 6 to 8 weeks there while we kind of reevaluated. And fortunately, the painting services in which we offered were considered an essential service. So we were allowed to open up pretty quickly during that. And it's been nothing but double-digit growth plus growth ever since. I think, obviously, folks in their home for long periods of time have tended to spend a little more time sprucing up their homes. Many folks have bought second homes and vacation homes that they're fixing up along the way there as well. Yep. So as a result of that, the home service business and the residential and commercial business has been just absolutely booming. We did see a little dip in our commercial business, recognize that about 40% of our revenue comes from the commercial side of the house. It's, apartment buildings, hotels, hospitals, office buildings. And for about 6 to 12 months there, a lot of those building owners backed off on some of the maintenance paint that they would normally do. But that's no longer the case. They're coming at it full bore to make sure that their facilities are fresh and able to handle their customers or their tenants or whatever. So it's been, COVID's been very good to our business. And at the same time, it's also been good on the franchise side, right? That many folks, and we call them, many folks during this time period have looked at, do they really like what they're doing for a job? Maybe some folks have lost their jobs. Maybe people are looking for opportunities. And so we've even seen a big resurgence of franchise candidates looking to become our franchisees as well. So it's helped us grow our franchise count, and it certainly has helped us grow our retail sales.
I want to point out, Tom, 3 things in the last 2 sections that we talked about here that I would just want to highlight real quick. You mentioned a question before this on man in a van, and it led me into the necessity is the mother of all invention thing that you brought up, that I think is really important for our listeners to hear. When you're talking about a company that's at the scale of where CertaPro is, that creation of that online estimating tool, that's not something that the average man in the van is going to be able to do or get access to without a huge cost, right? And speed to market. I'm assuming it didn't take you 2 years to create it. So, like, you have this tool now that shows the power of being part of a large franchise organization, right? Am I getting that right?
You're 100%, John. And, we're fortunate with our size and our scale, right? When you are $650 million in system-wide sales and almost 400 franchises, we have the ability to adapt and invest and support in ways that no one could do if they were on their own. And quite honestly, very few even franchise companies can because of our scale. And that's been a huge benefit for our franchise owners is our investment in technology. It's not only been the on-site estimating. We continue to evolve even the technology where customers can see before and after images of their homes before we paint them. What's it going to look like? What's the right color? We've got a tremendous technology program in our proprietary POS system. We call it CertaOne, and it's really the brains behind our organization. It does the marketing for our franchise owners. It does the estimate. It does the production management. It does ultimately the net promoter score and customer feedback. It does ongoing referral programs. So it's a program that we've literally invested millions and millions of dollars in that no one can compete with that kind of technology because of our scale. And that's one of the reasons we were able to take this fragmented industry and real professionalism to it. And, and even just following our operating system that, we're following everything that we do around our Certa Certainty system that also separates from many other contractors, things like showing up on time, things like being on budget, things like being respectful of people's homes and their lives while they're going through the disruption of our project. And we work around all of those for them to ultimately have just a tremendous experience. And to this day, we still see it that, in excess of 30 to 40% of our business each year comes from our previous customers because of the experience they had with us. So it's just an amazing opportunity around all of that. And even you mentioned supply chain. Again, without our scale, we might have run into some real supply chain issues, but the paint companies of the world, the Sherwin-Williams, the PPG, the Ben Moores, we are literally their largest customer in the country. So as a result of that, we tend to get very favorable, not only pricing, but favorable service and favorable product delivery. So when many other painters were having difficulty finding paint, there was a van full of paint being delivered to a CertaPro that day because of the scale of our business.
It's interesting because the comprehensiveness, like the depth of the system, everybody always asks me, what am I getting for the money, right? And it is sometimes hard to define what the real value is of some different businesses, but I'm hearing like so many different bullet points. We could talk for like 2 hours on this stuff, of the depth of the system. Like, I am a huge system and process guy. Like, I live on my calendar and I got a system for this, and, it's a little anal, of course, but it gets the job done. But what I'm talking about with you guys is, the depth of what you're talking about of scale, logistics, product marketing, the CertaPro One that you mentioned. It sounds like that thing, the systems you have in place do everything but kind of do the painting. So it's like this turnkey scenario for the person that's going to work on the business, not the guy that's painting the walls, right? It's the person.
Exactly right.
Yeah, you've created this system for the entrepreneur that's going to be able to step in and run an organization versus starting a business, right? You have to do both, but it's just interesting the way you explained it. I want to talk about something that it's kind of a softball for you, right? This is a big one here. Is what's unique about your franchise? I mean, look, I'm like Tim the Toolman Taylor, right? I'm going to go get the paint and try and do it myself and end up calling you guys anyway, okay? Because I'm never going to finish it. I'm not going to do a great job, at least not to my wife's standards, right? And so it's like a softball. What makes your business unique, Tom? I know there's a couple of things, but what's like the one or two big things?
Yeah, if we're talking about what makes it unique for the end user, quite honestly, is just the fact that we deliver extraordinary experiences. We know that the majority of people, as I was saying a little earlier, interactions with contractors of any nature typically have a negative connotation. They didn't show up. They weren't on budget. They came in and left my house a mess. They let my dog out of the backyard. They disrupted our children when they were in their room napping or when they were trying to do their homework. It was as if they took over the house and we were a victim of what was happening. Again, with CertaPro and our whole CertaPro Certainty system is designed around as little disruption as possible, that we have every one of our customers go, wow, we were in and out faster than we could ever imagine. The quality of the work was above expectation at a fair price, and the people treated me and their family and their home with tremendous respect. And ultimately, it's a combination of all of those things where we focus on, we call it delivering extraordinary experiences. I know it sounds overly simplified, but it's not, because there's so many elements that go into making sure that the customer story is told to us only once, and we're able to deliver above and beyond their expectations on the story and what they want to have happen with as little interaction and disruption to their lives. There's a tagline that we kind of use is, you do life, we'll do the painting. That's kind of at the end of the day how it operates.
Well, I love that story because it really is. I mean, I own several homes myself, my primary home, a couple of vacation homes, a couple of rental properties, and trust me, I know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to being the consumer. And, I'm going to assume here, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is just going to translate through to the model that we're talking about of the way you guys have set everything up for that entrepreneur that's going to, run this franchise business. It's going to translate through. You don't accidentally do the things you're talking about. It sounds very intentional, very, very planned out on why you're doing these things, because it's the differentiator, right? It's the thing that sets you apart from the crowd in the industry that you're in.
Well, and you're dead right, John. And when it comes to all that, and ultimately you mentioned earlier, right, one of the first things you said to it, people do business with people.
Yep.
And we take that really seriously. And even now you convert over to our franchise recruiting business, right? At the end of the day, we are always looking for the right stuff in terms of individuals that may be interested in our franchise opportunity. And we take that really seriously in who they are, and that they truly have what we call a net promoter mindset. And that is, for us, for those listeners that may never have heard the net promoter score, it is not just your average, 1 through 10 ranking. It is the intent that every one of your customers is going to rank you a 9 or a 10, or you failed. Right? And we're blessed with seeing net promoter scores that we have in our organization that are above companies like Apple and Southwest and Nordstrom, and some of the ones that the customer satisfaction has been considered some of the greatest in the world. And we're in the contracting business, and our net promoter score is greater than those organizations, because we bring in folks that don't look at someone just painting their home or their business as a one-time transaction. It is a lifetime transaction, and it is our objective to make sure that customer becomes a raving fan, and we want our franchise partners to believe in that kind of mindset as well.
Well, Tom, it's funny because I swear it's almost like you read my questions ahead of time. Who is your target franchise owner? I mean, that is literally my next question. So I understand the mindset of what you're looking for, and it makes sense because you're building that relationship. And you said something like 23% of your business comes from recurring business from customers, right? So, what type of person are you looking for? Somebody that's a painter? Are you looking for somebody that's an entrepreneur? Describe like an ideal franchise owner for you guys.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Our franchise owners come from a very eclectic background. Typically not painters. Not that we wouldn't, and we have some folks that have, matter of fact, one of our, great success stories the last couple of years, we had one of our subcontractor painters here in the Philadelphia area buy a franchise, grow it to multi-million dollars, just bought a second franchise and is doing well. But that's the exception. It really comes down to much more of a mindset and experiential background. First for us, we are looking for folks that are willing to commit full time and effort to the business. Again, having done this my whole entire life, and I saw it in my business, part-time efforts get part-time results. And for us, trying to build a $1 billion plus brand, our stakeholders in terms of our franchisees have got to be in this full-time in effort. So that's first and foremost, that they're full-time in effort. Secondly, we're looking for folks that really do have quantifiable leadership skills. And what I mean by that is they have recruited people to work for them in the past. They have trained them, they have retained them, and ultimately maybe even had to fire them if it didn't work out. But they've got quantifiable team-building leadership skills, and that may be coming from the military. We've got, almost 15 to 18% of our existing franchise owners are former military officers. So that's a big chunk of where we get it. We get a lot of folks that may have come from some large macro organizations. I'll give a perfect example of Enterprise Rent-A-Car is an organization where we've probably got, no exaggeration, 25 or 30 owners of ours that came from Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And what that means, again, it's a customer mindset, it's leadership skills, recognizing when you're starting one of our businesses that the role of the franchise owner, typically for the first 6 to 12 months, is going to be kind of the sales and marketing person for the business. So our franchisees doesn't necessarily have to have sales skills or have sales experience, but has to be willing to be the salesperson for their business to learn it for a period of time. Ultimately, they hire someone usually about 6 months in. They take the day-to-day estimate work off of them, but they still have to be comfortable in the sales and marketing arena. And this is again, I don't mean to be a cliche, but we test all of our franchise owners on what's called a caliper test. It takes an assessment of all of their preferential skill sets and bangs them up against the skill sets that we need to see in our franchise owners. So that's something that we do. And really, ultimately, it's about being very open to external structure or following a system, ultimately, right? That's probably for any good franchise system. You don't want someone to say, well, how come the CertaPro logo's in gold? My favorite color is green, and not realizing, we do all kinds of branding around it. You have to surrender yourself. We've got the system for you. Ultimately, you look at franchising and CertaPro Painters is, we are the coach, if you will, for an NFL team, and we're going to put in the playbook, and you're the quarterback, and you've got to run the plays that we give you to run. So you follow a system, and if you're successful at that, we see the economic return. Our business, in some cases, just to wrap up the background, does require some licensing in some states or in some counties. So clearly, and we're in people's homes. So clearly, our franchise owners have to have clean criminal backgrounds. They have to have clean financial backgrounds. And it is, again, if I was to jump to some of the economics of the investment, to open up a new CertaPro Painters is about $175,000 all in. So they're going to need to have the ability to qualify for that. And that typically means, having a net worth in excess of $250,000, of which 75 to 100,000 of that is liquid. And then we can help them find the funding for the rest of it.
Good deal. Let's talk a little bit about the misconceptions. I don't know what it is. I have an idea, but what would you say when you first start talking to folks? They reach out to you, raise their hand, I'm interested in CertaPro. When your folks get on the phone with the potential franchise owners, what is the top misconception that the franchise buyer comes to you with? What do they think they know that you guys are talking about in that first phone call?
Yeah, it's interesting. Probably the biggest one they all worry about is, am I going to have to paint? They still perceive themselves as having to be that man in a van, right? That they're going to be the guy they see around their community with the van and the bucket of paint and wandering around. That's not our business, or that's not the role of our franchisee in that business. So very quickly, we have to kind of get the idea of what the day in the life is around that.
Yep.
The second piece that they always talk about, it's probably like every other business in the world right now. Where am I going to find the help to get the work done? Right? Where am I going to find painters? That is the next one. And we've got all types of proprietary recruitment programs that I can tell you that none of our franchisees ever fail or go out of business because they can't find painters. We've got not only a recruiting program on our own, we're also directly tied to those vendors that I mentioned earlier that quite honestly steer painters towards us, being their largest customer. It also that we end up buying their paint. They're very, very adept at helping us recruit our painter crews and helping support that at the local level. So we've got programs to help them, a franchise owner who's looking to first overcome the misconception of what the day in the life for that individual is going to be for he or she. And number two, help them overcome their biggest concern, which is finding painters to be able to do the work for them.
Well, it sounds like you got a system for that stuff too, man. This thing's ready to rock and roll for the right entrepreneur. Can we talk a little bit about the day in the life without going too deep into it? Just, you mentioned it there. It's one of my questions on the list here. You know, what's a typical day in the life of a franchise owner?
Yeah, it's really split between three primary pillars of our business. It's the sales and marketing piece. Whether it's early on in their career, they're interacting with residential customers or going out and doing estimates. Maybe it's interacting with some commercial property owners and writing some estimates or helping go over the work that's being done there. That's a big chunk of it. Probably 30% of their day in the life is that. 30% of the day in the life is recruiting painters, that you're working always, you know, it's almost like you were a GM of a professional baseball team and you were always looking for good pitchers, right?
Right.
In our business, it's the same way. You want to have a bullpen of painters at your disposal so that when a job comes in, you literally have a bullpen of painters to offer that job to. So you're always out there networking your painter communities and the paint stores and going on paint jobs maybe for other companies and talking to the painters there. Just because ultimately, at the end of the day, at CertaPro Painters, you know, there's two things we talk about. First, reimagine painting. That, you know, people think that they're going to be stuck in, you know, some little crummy office with nobody and it's going to be a small business. This is not. This is owning big, scalable businesses, right? Our average owner runs a $1.7 million business. We've got multiple owners that are running businesses over $10 million a year. The objective is you're trying to run a big, scalable business. So in doing so, it's the sales and marketing, it's the recruiting side for painters and for your salespeople. And then third is some of the admin, although small in our business because of the technology, but there is some, you know, things that have to happen from paperwork and, just the basic back end of the house financial stuff, but that's pretty small.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, let's talk a little bit about, you know, talking as I learn more and more just in this conversation, you know, I want to talk about like what your process looks like to open up. It sounds like you've got a system for everything that they need to once they're open, but let's talk through the opening stages. So somebody's come to you, they're qualified, they go through the due diligence, mutual discovery, you've learned about them, they've learned about you, everybody's happy, you decide to get married, agreements are signed. What happens once someone becomes a franchise owner? How do you help them get open, and how long does that process take?
Yeah, it's fortunate, right? We are not a brick and mortar concept. So
right.
They open up typically on average between 6 and 8 weeks from when they sign and fund the franchise agreement. You're open for business. So it does not take very long from start to finish of when you're actually approved and awarded a franchise. It is a breakneck 6 to 8 weeks. During that time period, we send them through our CertaPro University. It's actually a 5-week program, 4 weeks online, 1 week in the home office here just outside of Philadelphia, and then you're off to the races to get started. It's really that quick. We've got tremendous support, though. I'm so proud of the investment that this organization makes in resources for our franchise owners. And first, you know, it starts with all the operational support, but really the whole team. You know, we've got over 80 folks on our home office staff for 380 franchisees. That's a rate of one corporate support person for every 5 franchise owners. Again, John, you and I have been doing this for a long time. Those are that are very rare in franchising. It's typically more like 1 out of 15 or 20. So we've really put our money where our mouth is when it comes to support. So you've got the CertaPro University. They're also assigned a dedicated general manager to help them during that first 3 months to launch the business. We also have learning and development sessions for their new hires, whether they bring in a residential sales advisor, an office administrator, a commercial sales advisor. You know, we have training for all of those people through our CertaPro University program, both online and in person. We've got dedicated marketing support, which I, again, couldn't be more proud of. It starts at the national level. We do a bunch of, you know, we invest through our general marketing fund about $17 to $18 million a year on social media, on radio, on TV, on sports sponsorships. If you're from Philly, you know, you probably see us behind the bench at the Philadelphia Flyers games. We're behind that. We do that in a lot of other markets as well. We've got over I think, 30 now regional co-ops where our franchisees band together so that they can do marketing at the local level, whether it's pay-per-click, radio, TV, or billboards. And then there's local marketing. So not only do these franchisees have a dedicated operations manager, they also all have a dedicated marketing manager to help them integrate their local marketing strategy to integrate directly what's happening both at the regional co-op and the national level. Again, something that I think very few, franchise companies can offer to you, get to be the size that we are.
That sounds like you've got, everything set up for success. And I really mean that because I talked to a lot of different franchise companies and I could hear your passion behind what you guys have going on there. You mentioned early on here, maybe 10 minutes ago or so, about a little bit about the financials. Without going too deep, you mentioned a couple of numbers. I want to make sure I give you time to maybe explain a little bit. How much does it cost to start a CertaPro Painters franchise? I mean, I can go grab a paintbrush, gallon of paint, go in my pickup truck, go start painting, right? You're talking about big numbers here, and I understand it's a big business, but what is it that we're investing in with a CertaPro?
Yeah, I think that's an awesome question. I think that's probably one of the other questions that people, and also it's the fact that we're not brick and mortar. Our all-in investment, as we said earlier, John, $175,000. So, that includes for the franchise fee, that includes for all the initial marketing, that includes for the travel and entertainment, that includes for all the other little startup costs that you have, computers and equipment, the working capital to get the business off the ground. So again, in terms of franchising, under a $200,000 all-in investment. The part that I'm most proud of is how quickly our franchise owners come out of the chute and doing business and making money. Our average franchisee in their first year is going to do somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000 in sales their first 12 months in business and be making money. So this is not something that takes years and years to get to that break-even point. As reported in our FDD, our franchisees make money in their first year in business and do between $500,000 and $600,000. They're typically doing about $800,000 or $900,000 in year two, and then getting into the 1.3 to 1.4 by year three, and then up to chain average by year four, which is going to be in excess of probably $2 million at this point.
Well, they are impressive numbers. And see, I wanted to give you that chance because I kind of already knew some of that stuff, but I just want to make sure that, some folks, when they hear big numbers, because look, 175,000 that's not chump change, right? That's real money. And, they're going to be investing into a lot, but then you hear the backside of it, of what you're getting for the money and how it works and all the systems you guys have in place and the technologies and the marketing and just all the things we could come up with a lumber list to answer the question of, what am I investing in, right? So I want to give you, Tom, the last minute here. Just give us a quick recap, overall high-level view, of CertaPro, the highlights, why somebody should consider reaching out to you. And then right after that, we'll go into how folks should reach out to you, right?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, John. This has been exciting for me. Like you said, I think we could spend a lot more time on any one of the nuances that we talked there, but I couldn't be more proud of what CertaPro Painters represents and the franchise opportunity. Again, you're talking about if you're someone who's looked at other franchise opportunities, how many concepts out there are you going to say that are, under $175,000 and have over a $1.7 million average unit sales and show profitability in excess of $200,000 to the franchise owner on an annual basis? I would say I can show less than on one hand do I know the numbers of organizations that can show that kind of return on capital, if you will. CertaPro, again, like many folks, we are a mature brand. We've been around for 30 years. So as a result of that, you've got world-class support. Our operations, our marketing, our technology, our partnership with our vendor support, it's second to none. There's no organization that can beat us in any of those areas. And ultimately, it's one of even our culture. CertaPro Painters is a mission-driven culture. We bring in like-kind individuals that really want to follow the four core missions of our business. And it resonates whether it's the franchise owner, the CEO of the company, or whether it's even our painters. We live in these four core values of respecting the individual, no matter their beliefs or their backgrounds. we believe in number 2, that we deliver what we promise. If we say we're going to do something, we do it for what we said, when we said, and how we're going to say. Thirdly, we're going to have pride in what we do. That what we do every day is a stamp of approval for not only yourself, but everyone that you interact with. And everyone in our organization is encouraged to practice continuous improvement. That no matter how good you are, even our biggest franchise owner last year did over $14 million. He's expecting double-digit growth this year, and he is taking all of his people on retreats to get better at what they do and learn more. So no matter who you are in the organization, that you're always practicing to get better at something in your life or in your business. And we think that if we're looking for folks that those core values resonate with them, they're willing to reimagine painting, because it's probably not what they thought it was when you open up the hood and take a look at the CertaPro business opportunity. So, if someone's interested, they can contact me directly, Tom Monaghan. It's T Monaghan, Monaghan, at CertaPro, and that's Certa with a C, CertaPro.com, and or find us on the website at CertaPro.com under franchise opportunities. Either myself or someone on my team would be happy to talk to you about whether you've got the right stuff to become part of the CertaPro franchise team.
Well, the current Tom Monaghan of franchising, we appreciate your time, buddy. It's been enlightening. I already knew some of the information just from knowing the concept itself, but even with what I knew, there were several things in there you just pointed out that just are extremely valuable for anybody looking at this kind of business. Anybody that's thinking about getting into home services should definitely reach out to Tom and his team. So, Tom, I thank you for your time, and I'll make sure that we include your information, your contact information, to get all the spelling right on the page and everything for you guys. All right?
I certainly appreciate it, John. Thank you for your time and this opportunity. Thanks for your listeners for learning a little bit about me and CertaPro Painters. And thanks again, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Tom. Bye-bye now.